Hello everyone. In this particular video, we are going to discuss question number 41 of GATE DA23 exam. Okay. Now this question is based on Python function. So here we have function. So we have defined function by name fun. It is taking three arguments d, s1 and s2. What is d, what is s1, what is s2? We don't know now. Let us read the code first. If s1 is greater than s2, okay, then d of s1 then d, comma d of s2 equals to d of s2 comma d of s1, and then again we are calling the function inside the function here. So if you observe, this is the function we have defined fun, and again we are calling the same function inside this particular function. So this is basically a recursion. Okay, whenever we are calling the function inside the same function, that is basically a recursion. I already discussed this in my course, so you can just go through it. Then again we are calling this function, taking this particular thing as an input. Now what does this Python function do? Select one appropriate option below. Now here we don't know what is d is. So you can read the option now. It finds the smallest element in d from index s1 to s2. It means that d is a list and s1 and s2 are the index. Same thing from option B also, list d between indices s1 and s2. Same from option C also, we can say that d is basically a list and s1 and s2 are the indices. Now we need to see which of these particular options are true. Okay. Now let us consider one sample list. For example, d equals to 8, 10, 3, 5 like this. Okay, and 6 like this. I have considered one sample list having these particular elements, and the index position of these particular elements are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 like this, right? Now what we need to do, we need to consider this particular function. Say we have this particular d, yes. What is s1, what is s2? So we need to take s1 and s2 such a way that s1 must be greater than s2 to satisfy this particular condition. Now what I will do, I will consider s1 as 1 and for example s2 as 3. Okay. Now if you observe, for this particular condition, when s1 is 1 and s2 is 3, so 1 is less than 3. Yes, that is true. Now we are going to execute this particular thing. Now if you observe what we are doing here, d basically a list. So index position is s1. The element at position s1 comma the element at position s2 must be equals to the d of s2 comma d of s1. It means that we are simply swapping this. Okay, swapping the elements. For example, element at s1 index equals to the element at s2 index, and the element at s2 index will be equal to element at s1 index, right? So this is what this particular thing is doing. So we are going to swap the elements, and then again we are calling this particular function. Okay, now first what we are doing here, d of 1, that is basically s1, must be equals to d of s2, right? Now what is d of s2 here? D of s2 is basically a 3, right? D of s2, so d of 1 is 3 and d of s2, so d of s2 is basically 3, which is equals to d of s1. S1 is 1, 1 is 10. So simply we are swapping the element of the indices 1 and 3. So instead of 10 it will be 5, and instead of 5 it will be 10. Okay, this is basically a 5, right? D of 1, 5. So simply we have swapped the element of these two particular indices. If s1 is greater than s2, then I am simply swapping the elements. Now again I am calling this particular function. Okay, now what we are doing, we are taken the same list, this particular list updated 1. Now s1 plus 1. Now what is s1? 1 here. So s1 plus 1 will be 2. What is s2 minus 1? So s2 minus 1 will be 3. 3 minus 1 will be 2, right? Now here if you observe, our input for this particular next function is what? This particular list and 2 comma 2. Now here 2 is not less than 2, so that is false, right? If this thing is false, then we are not going to execute, we are going to stop the function here, right? Now what this particular function is doing, if you observe, it finds the smallest element in d from index s1 to s2. No, it is not finding any element, it is simply swapping the element between s1 and s2. So option A is not correct here. It performs a merge sort in place on this list D between indices S1 and S2, both inclusive. Also, sorting is also not taking place, right? Because we are not comparing the element, we are comparing the indices. So option B is not true. What about this option number C? It reverses the list D between indices S1 and S2, both inclusive. Now if you observe here, instead of 10, I have 5, and instead of 5, I have 10. So it reverses the list between S1 and S2. So this is S1 and this is S2. Previously it was 10, 3, 5. Now it is 5, 3, 10. It means that we have reversed the list between S1 and S2, right? So this can be a correct option here. Let's discuss option number D. It swaps the element in D at indices S1 and S2. Yes, that is true. And leaves the remaining element unchanged. No, that is not true, because this is true for this particular case only. If you observe, this particular statement is also true for this particular case when S1 is equals to 1 and S2 equals to 3, right? But what if I consider S1 equals to 1 and S2 equals to 4 now? Now in that case, what I am doing, I am going to swap this element, right? Now let us consider this particular scenario. My list is same only, right? 8, 10, 3, 5, 6. So index position are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I have considered S1 as 1, S2 as 4, right? Now if I call this particular function, so this is the D as an input, S1 is basically 1, S2 is 4, so S1 is less than S2, yes, that is true. Then we are simply swapping the element between S1 and S4, right? So S1 is 10, so instead of 10 it will be 6, and instead of 6 it will be 10, right? Now go for a next thing, function. Here again we are calling the function. This time we are taking this particular D as an input. Now what is the value of S1 plus 1? So S1 plus 1 is basically 2, and S2 minus 1 will be 3 here. Now again I am calling this particular function. Now again this particular thing is correct here, right? So 2 is less than 3. Yes, that is true. Then what we are doing, we are simply swapping this, right? So for the next recursion, S1 is basically 2 and S2 is basically 3. So we are simply swapping second and third element. So we are swapping second and third element. So instead of 3 it will be 5, instead of 5 it will be 3, right? So what we have done here, previously it was 3, 10, 3, 5, 6, in between 1 and 4 S1, S2. Now it is 6, 5, 3, 10. So we have reversed this particular list between the indices S1 and S4, that is S1 and S2. It means that the correct option is C here only, because what this particular option is saying, it swaps the element D at indices S1 and S2 and leaves the remaining element unchanged. No, this is not true, because if you consider this particular case, then option C is correct, right? So please be careful while considering the sample case for this type of question, okay? Because if you consider this scenario, then option D is also correct, right? Because it leaves the remaining element unchanged here. The C is unchanged here. So both options C and D will be correct in the case of S1 and S3. But try to check for another condition also, like S1 equals to 1 and S2 equals to 4. So here if you observe, option D is not correct, only option C is correct here, because it will reverse this particular list between the indices S1 and S2, both inclusive. Okay, so I hope you understand this particular question. So please be careful while solving this type of question. Whenever you are considering the sample element, please consider this such cases also. Okay, if you are getting more than one option correct, try for next assumption. Okay, so that's it from this particular video. I have added question based on the recursion in my test series, so you can just go through that. Very important topic. The two question was there from this particular topic, recursion. So yeah, also if you practice enough, you will get to know that this particular thing is not correct. Okay, so within a minute you can solve this type of question, because you can simply eliminate this two, and even you can eliminate this one also if you practice more such type of questions. Okay, so that's it from this particular video. Thank you.